Because I think we have like a school too. I was hoping that this was something.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll continue with the roll call.
Jim Balzer. Dr. Dave Bardo.
Here.
Dr. Noel Deep.
Here.
Jill Manick Nelson.
Here.
Andy Mary.
Here.
Mary Neufeld.
Here.
Danny Pyatt.
Here.
J.D. Schrader.
Here.
Angel Zimmerman.
And Mary, would you see if you could turn your mic on? I don't think it's on.
Is it on?
Oh, now it is. Do I leave it on? Should I leave it on? It should be.
Okay, and we'll continue with public comment. Okay, we have several people signed up for public comment tonight, and I'll just remind you that public comment is limited to 5 minutes. And we'll start with
Shanda Stewart.
Shanda Stewart. Okay.
Is that right?
Yes, it was. Where do I go again?
Right with the microphone. Right there's fine.
My name is Shanda. I am a mom of two, one that is entering school for the first time this year. I want to start off by thanking you all for allowing me to share my thoughts tonight. When decisions are made on how to move forward in these times relating to COVID-19, I would ask that you seriously contemplate the following prior to making those very crucial decisions. Because I would bet that for every person in our district who believes in vaccines, masking, and mandatory quarantines, there is someone who does not. The following are a few facts presented by Dr. Dan Stock, a functional family medical doctor in Noblesville, Indiana. COVID-19 is spread by aerosol particles, which are small enough to go through every type of mask you see non-medical staff wearing. Vaccination changes nothing with this virus. If it did, we would not be seeing a resurgence in the middle of summer when risk of respiratory viral syndromes should be at their lowest. To better understand why this is happening, you would need to know about antibody-mediated viral enhancement. This occurs when a vaccine is created inaccurately, stumping our immune systems and therefore allowing the virus to become worse in vaccinated individuals than it would be if you had caught the native infection. In a study done in Massachusetts, 75% of people who had a COVID-19 positive symptomatic case had received the vaccination. With that being said, mine and my children's healthcare decisions are not yours to make. I strongly believe in individualized healthcare, not being judged for or manipulated into making decisions related to my children. As we already know through several accredited medical studies, being vaccinated and or masked does not mean you cannot contract or spread COVID-19. Therefore, policies surrounding COVID-19 should not be made to differ depending on vaccine status. Doing so would mean discriminating against a large portion of your students and their families, as well as creating segregation amongst our children and staff within the district. My family believes in treating illnesses naturally at home using toxin-free options and focusing on building our immune system so that if we should find ourselves battling an illness like COVID-19, our immune systems are strong enough to do its God-given job. It was actually failed modern medical treatments that led me to live a more holistic lifestyle over 10 years ago. Through VAERS and the CDC, we know that all vaccinations have adverse risks and side effects, including death. There is no denying that. The research is everywhere. And taking away our right to choose individual healthcare treatments and needs for our children, you are then also assuming legal liability for any complications that arise from those very decisions you would be attempting to coerce families like mine into making. Nurse Jansen advised that for an unvaccinated asymptomatic student, a 10-day quarantine would be forced. However, for a vaccinated asymptomatic student, returning to the classroom would be allowed. Is that not the definition of discrimination? As a full-time mother to 2 children who are not even able to get the vaccination at this point due to age, nor would I choose to get them vaccinated if they were of the recommended age, I'd like to know how that is feasible or sensible, because in my opinion, it's not either. Many employers are not willing or mandated to give parents and guardians 10 to 14 days off every time a child is exposed to someone with COVID-19. We also face daycare limitations. These potential exposures not only happen in the classroom, but they can happen anywhere at any time. We already know that vaccination does not mean you cannot contract or spread COVID-19, so what does being vaccinated have anything to do with the quarantine policy that you are trying to set into place? Scientists and medical doctors everywhere have confirmed that vaccinated individuals can be asymptomatic and still spread COVID-19. So why are you discriminating against my child and others who are not vaccinated and forcing them to quarantine for 10 days while the vaccinated children get to return to school? In addition, Nurse Jansen stated they're working towards administering COVID-19 testing in the schools. I do not give my consent for anyone to test my child in the school setting and would like to know how you plan to go about ensuring children will not be tested against their parents' will. I will not trade a natural lifestyle for an education for my child. It's non-negotiable. So by creating policies that discriminate against all students and staff who choose a lifestyle like our family does, or who for various reasons cannot get the coronavirus vaccinations, especially when you're basing these decisions off of recommendations that are still changing daily and studies that are incomplete with a vaccination that is still only approved for emergency use and available only to some, you are taking steps backwards as a district. If you look at neighboring districts all around us, several have already stated that both masks and vaccinations will be optional. My hope would be that you would throw out the talk of vaccine, mask, and asymptomatic quarantine policies altogether and set one very straightforward policy, and that would be that the Annapolis School District recognizes, but most importantly appreciates, that all students and staff have individual medical, religious, and personal beliefs, and that you choose not to hinder our children's right to a fair education based on those individual beliefs, nor do you wish to influence those choices in any way, shape, or form. Let us make the decisions that affect our children's health, and we will allow you to make the decisions that affect their education. I'd like to end with an anonymous quote. What's right for you may not be right for me. What is right for me may not be right for you. But what is not right for either of us is being stripped of the freedom to choose what is right for ourselves. And if anyone in this room agrees with that, I would like you to raise your hand in support. Thank you.
Next up is Gail Zavarowski.
Open this up quick. I can't show it to you individually, so I'll just hold it up, okay? And it'll make more sense. Okay. So I'll keep it to 5. I appreciate your work. And I know, and now I will speak. Your job is important. You have a lot of things coming up that are going to be very important, and it's important for the parents to be involved. But I wanted to go through a few things, and if you didn't know, now you'll know. And this is for parents too. Why mask children? Children K to 12 are exempt. They're already immune, but we want to mask them. Children need oxygen. I know we have a doctor on board. Need oxygen during their developing years, sitting all day in school with a mask. They breathe carbon monoxide. Scientific proof, when you put the mask on, you breathe in 27% carbon monoxide. Within seconds, you breathe over 200% carbon monoxide. Is that oxygen? No. You need oxygen while they sit in school. So, all right. So I'm going to give you a couple of quotes here, and then I'm going to show you something. And this will be simple enough. All right. This will be by the top people. Okay. Masks have become a political tool. When COVID-19 hit, governments panicked and created enormous fear. The Center of Disease Control currently estimates a COVID-19 survival rate, 99.99, okay, for people younger than 50, but the danger created by the panic was too great to undo. Okay, that's one. I could read you much, but I'm going to keep it limited. The mask dogma has many cracks in it because from it started. For one, the U.S. Surgeon General and the Center of Disease Control both previously said masks are not effective preventing general public from catching coronavirus. So they were already started with a credibility deficit. Therefore, many officials have frequently caught without masks when they think the cameras are off them. Dr. Fucci, for example, has been caught doing this mask thing. I also read about masks that you're wearing. If you're on, they have that caution thing when you buy something, what it's not guaranteed to do. It says on for the mask, it only stops 3%, and it is not guaranteed at all to stop you from any disease. So I'm telling you, look it up yourself, okay? All right, so I'm going to go down a little bit. I like to give out a few facts. I don't want to be standing here just running at my mouth. Okay, if you look up, and you can see, all right, I've got to put this down. Here's graphs. Graphs. No, it's not moving fast enough. 12 countries. 12 countries and the United States. Okay? They're on here. You can look it up. We have the coronavirus, actual virus. Then it's settled down. Then let's put masks on. Okay? So on these charts, look it up. What happened after they put on masks? Every country went up. Every country went from settling down to up. Guess why? Mask. You need oxygen. It's not airborne. And now we're going into other things. Okay, so that's on the graph and the world. You put mask on, you have more effect of getting corona. Okay, but 99.9% they worry about you dying. Okay, all right. Coronavirus is called COVID-19. Am I right? What does COVID-19 mean? Certificate of Virus ID. Do you see what's happening now? They want everyone to get a shot.
Okay, Gail.
Everyone, and you get a certificate. I'm almost done. I'm going to keep it within the 5.
It is 5, just
It is
so you know.
5.
Oh, I'm in 5? Okay. I'll finish what COVID means and then I'll quit. Okay. They want everybody to have a shot, so you have a certificate. If you don't get a shot, you cannot buy or sell without a certificate. That's their aim, okay? So your aim as wonderful people is to know the truth, and the kids need oxygen during school, not masks.
Okay,
Thank you
for
very
your
much.
comments. And we'll go on to Rod Zupan.
I'll keep this simple tonight. Just up here to say that I think it's up to each family to make the choice for their family, their kids, whether they want to or not, what makes them feel safe, but it should not be mandated. My son should miss 5 football games, have his grades go down because of all this effect. That's what happened last year, and it's affecting college entrance. Highlight reel grades. It's kind of a bummer, but getting into all the science or this or that, I'm not going to go there tonight, but it needs to be our own choice. So, thank you.
Gail Zavarowski.
Never been to one of these. I guess I'm gonna keep it short and sweet, like Rod just said. We all have choices. It's a free country. Not any of you or any of yous out here want to be told how to live your life. If I told you or any of you that you should cut out all soda, are you gonna do it? No, you're not. When it comes down to the safety of these kids, breathing, such and whatever, you can't breathe. And I've seen people walking around playing sports. Last year, driving around, seeing these elementary kids that drive around and do flooring installation for a lot of people in town, seeing these kids running around with a mask on. I'd like to see any of yous challenge me to take outside, I'll run you to the corner and back with a mask on, and see which one of you isn't going to be looking for oxygen when you're done. First and foremost, don't make these things for these kids. Let them get out there, let them expose themselves to germs, bacteria, and whatever. It'll make them healthier and better. But anyways, thank you.
Thank you, and Angie Schreiber.
Good evening, everyone. First up, I just want to say that I'm not here to debate, I guess, masks or anything like that. What I'm here to talk about is to stand up for my right as a parent and how parents shouldn't have, or we should have the right to care for the safety and well-being of our children. We shouldn't have that taken away from us by school boards or by counties or by cities. And if you look in your own bylaws, it says that you agree with that under relationships with parents. And I'll read what it says. If I can turn the page. must be on my other page, but, anyways, in your own bylaws, it says that. Under relationships with parents, it says that the Indigo School District believes that it is the rights and the job of the parents to care for the safety and the concern for their own children. It is not the school district's. That is your own verbiage. So I just want to point that out. Second, I want to talk about on the news. When we watch the news, they make it sound like we have, just astronomical cases of COVID exploding everywhere. I looked up the local numbers, and in Wausau, they have 5 cases in the hospital, in the ICU. We have 5. Indigo, we have 0. So, does that constitute us changing back to mask mandating? I don't think so. I think maybe we could keep an eye on it and reevaluate it as it goes. And if it explodes like how they say it's going to, we can come back and revisit it then. But I don't think it's justified right now. The other thing I want to point out is that I looked on our county website, and according to our county's website, which is not the same as what the state is reporting, which is, I understand the lag in reporting. According to our county website, we have 13 positive cases in the entire county as of today. That is, and based off the county population, a little over 19,000, that is 0.068%. Again, is that worth us going back to mandating masks? I mean, we all have gotten kind of, I don't want to say used to not wearing masks, but it's been awfully darn, it's felt really good not to, hasn't it? I don't think any of us would disagree with that. It's nice to go to the store, it's nice to go to Menards. I mean, I think we all were happy about the relaxation of the rules, and I know the kids were. Taking a step backwards, I think, would be really detrimental. Surrounding school districts that have recently voted on this for the upcoming school year and have chose not to go to masks are Wausau School Board, just recently 6-3. Menominee School Board, 5-4. Appleton School Board, 4-2. Waukesha School Board of Education. Now they said that they would not approve on-site virus testing or on-site clinics either. And I know that's something that the school has talked about doing, is testing the kids for the virus, which I am totally against. I don't want my daughter tested. I don't think that's right. I think that's an invasion of her privacy. It's an invasion of my privacy. If she's feeling ill, I will take her in. I have no problem doing that. But the school does not have the right to constantly test kids. Some other local school districts, Elko, masks are optional unless they're mandated by a higher power, they say. Rhinelander, Bedford, Merrill, Three Lakes, and White Lake meets next week. So these are the surrounding school districts that have decided not to go back to mask mandating.
Okay, thank you, Angie, your time's up. And I will just mention that I have received some letters, as have other board members, and we have shared those among all board members. Okay. And we will go on to the COVID update.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here, and thanks to those who spoke during public comment. Board members, you can see the updates, or the attachments rather, that I've included with the COVID update. For the public, they come from our medical advisor, Dr. McKenna, DPI, There's a masking legal letter from a law firm that we use that says masks are required on buses regardless of any board decision, and that's not just for us, obviously, that's a federal mandate right now. We also have guidance from WHS. The state superintendent wrote a letter to all superintendents, which I've included for you, and finally Lake County. And with us tonight, we have Donna Wiegert and Jean Weston from Public Health here, along with Darlene Jansen, of course, our district nurse, should you have any questions that I cannot answer. So just so the public knows tonight, we are not on the agenda as voting. Right now, our district has agreed, our board has agreed that masks are recommended. That's where it stands as of today. However, any board member could ask that a vote, if that's your wish, be put on for the next meeting, which would be August 24th, and in time for a school decision if it should change. So with that, I'll open it up to the board to see if you have any questions or comments, anything you would like addressed at this time.
Actually, with regards to that masking on the school buses, how are you going to address that for the school district?
We've already, and I say we, but Tim, who's our liaison with Maliette Bus Company, has already spoken with them, and they are aware of that requirement and will proceed as necessary. We'll have masks available because we're certain not every rider will board the bus with one.
Assuming we do not require masks, which I guess I would assume we're going to, what did you think about Dr. McKenna's requirement that unvaccinated teachers still mask? Think that's the way we lean?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking you,
others?
he suggested that the board didn't have to vote on that because it was within your purview.
Well, actually, and what he's referring to is when COVID first hit, the board did give me, based on Stevens Point's model, the autonomy to make decisions as necessary. So we did that for quite a while, and the only one that really came under question was masking, because the board had not officially voted on that. Rather, it was a consensus at the time. So now the last one where masks were recommended, that was a board vote. So I would actually defer to the board for that, JD, just because masking, you know, has become so polarized.
And you guys planning on calling the question to ask it to be changed, just for the people out here? I don't think all came to convince us to do something we already were going to do, but
JD, they can't call the question, it's...
we can or we can't. I meant for the next meeting to ask for it to be on the
They can
agenda.
ask for it to be on for the next meeting if anybody on the board wants it voted on, we can ask for it next meeting.
What we said in June stands.
If we don't revote.
Right. You can always ask for it again.
So I just have a question here. In Dr. McKenna's letter, he talks about a community case percentage below 3% for 2 weeks in a row.
Can you use the mic?
I think
Everybody can hear you?
Okay.
In Dr. McKenna's letter, he talks about a percentage below 3% for 2 weeks in a row, community case percentage. And what is our community case percentage right now?
Right now, our case percentage is between 8 and 9.9%.
0.9%.
8 to
8 to 9.9.
9.9%.
It's almost between 8 and 10%.
So how do you calculate that?
We calculate it by
You wanna
positive
regress
case.
that?
Use the mic, please.
We calculate, is it on? Okay. We calculate that by the percent positive per 100,000. And what I did is I divided it by 5 to equal about 20,000 in our county. So right now we're at 8% to 9.9%. So that's between 10 and 20 cases in a 7-day period.
There's 19,000 people in the county.
So for those of you who couldn't hear, the cases right now are between 8 and 10%.
Tell us how she.
How is that calculated?
None of us heard that, so it didn't make sense. Can you explain that again?
You may have to hold the mic really close. Thank you.
Okay, the way we calculated that was a substantial amount is considered between 50 to 99 per 100,000. And what we have right now is, in the last 7 days, how many do we have? We have between 8 and 9%. So that is between 10 and 20 cases per 100, or per 20,000.
What kind of numbers?
No, basically, I think what you're looking at is 13.
Take the mic. Thank you.
I don't know, I'm not the greatest at math, but if you're looking at 13 cases for 20,000, so you multiply that by 5, which gets you to the 65 per 100,000. The state and the CDC, if I'm not mistaken, usually talks about the numbers per 100,000 population. Even though our county has only 19 or 20,000, they still talk about, they talk in terms of the number of cases, number of positive cases per 100,000 population. So then they look at those numbers and they say, well, if we are at 65 per 100,000, then if you are between 50 or 55 and 99 cases per 100,000 population, it is considered substantial spread. And if it is above that, then it is high spread areas. So that's how they are looking at the mild, moderate, and
if you've got 13 cases in the county, that would be 13% of your cases would be on 100 people, if you had 100 people in your county.
no, sir, no.
How are they calculating?
We have 13 positive cases in our county. And so if you round it up to 20,000 people in the county, so you multiply that by 5 because they talk in terms of 100,000. This is a standard way of reporting across the state and...
But then she said we have 8%. Right?
No, I said we have 8 to 9.9%
I guess I
positive
just don't
tests.
understand that.
Positive tests,
Is that through the whole cycle or is that right now?
the last 7 days.
The CDC indicates 5.39% percent positivity as of
So
Sunday night.
that's different than the number of cases that we are reporting here, Joe?
Yeah.
So basically, the percentage that you're looking at is the number of tests that you did. That would be something that they can tell you how many cases were actually tested. So if you got 13 cases and you only tested, say 20, then your rate would be much higher than if you tested 300 and you got 13 positive. Is the numerator or denominator correct? Yeah.
So when you look at the CDC and looking at the substantial rate, they actually are looking at two things. One thing is they're looking at the total of new cases per 100,000. And that's where for substantial, which we are now in, is looking at the range of 50 to 99.99 actual cases in the past 7 days. So that's one metric right there. The second metric is the percent positive tests during the past 7 days. And in order to fall into the substantial rate for the CDC metrics, that's 8 to 9.9%. Now, if you do have one, according to what you're saying, the CDC says we're around 5 or so percent, they will look at the higher number to put us in the substantial rate. So it doesn't mean that everything matches between the positivity rate of the cases tested, because it depends on, again, like Dr. said, how many cases actually were tested. The less you test, the more positives you have, the higher case rate or positivity you will have.
So when Dr. McKenna talks about community case percentage, that's what he's talking about, the number tested versus the number positive.
Yes, the number positive over the number tested.
Okay.
Is there any feedback on, given that we've had COVID in the moderate category at different points, and it's rising now, does the health department have any feedback on natural immunity as a result of those that have contracted and now have moved past COVID?
So the information that we receive from our epidemiologists at the state, because at the local level, as you know, we do not have that capacity to actually look specifically at our county. But the information that's coming out from the research that's been done is that the natural immunity in most cases only lasts about 90 days. Whereas with the vaccination immunity that they continue to collect data on, it's lasting longer than 90 days.
Wouldn't they continue to be collecting data on the natural immunity as well as collecting data on the...
I can't comment on what any research is being done at this point. I'm not part of any research studies, but yes, that would be a good metric and good data to continue to collect.
And does our county have any data on the Delta variant and how many cases affect Langley County? I know Nurse Jansen had reported in the July COVID update that the northern region did not have any Delta cases. Do we have any data on that?
Yes, we actually have 9 cases of Delta in the north central HERC region, which is how they separate the state. They do not dive down to the local county level when they report the Delta variant or any other variants.
Thank you. Would you mind just sharing who's in that region that we're in?
I don't know all the counties by name, but it's the light blue, so it's geographical.
I appreciate your feedback. I'm just asking because there's certainly people here with a lot of concern and engagement, and so the northern region, I don't know what that means either, how many counties that is, and is Marathon County included in that or not, because, maybe if you could just share where the map could be found if people wanted to reference it.
The map is found on the Wisconsin Department of Health Services if you Google HERC, H-E-R-C regions.
Thank you.
And just on that, are all cases here in Langley County tested to see if they're Delta or not?
They are not.
So how would they know how many Delta cases there are if they don't test for them?
They do a percentage of testing and depends on whether or not, it depends on the circumstance of the person who's positive. So if it's a person who is vaccinated, they should be doing, the recommendation from the state is that the lab who does the initial testing sends it down to the state lab of hygiene to be tested for the variant. If it's a reinfection of somebody, that's another case. If it comes from travel, although I think they're going to probably ease up on that because of the increase in cases throughout the country. But those are some of the metrics that they use, that they encouraged providers and labs to send that off for variant testing. So not every single test that's positive is tested for variant.
Okay, thank you.
I'll comment, Andy. Obviously, there's confusion over the numbers. So what I have heard is that the CDC, or our state organization, takes the number of cases that we have in our county, which is 13. Dr. D confirmed that. And because we have almost 20,000 people in our county, they multiplied the 13 by 5 to get a total of 65 people who have COVID for 100,000. And then they have a bracket of 50 to 99. And because 65 is between 50 and 99, oh, that's a problem. Now, I'll do the math for you, because someone said calculator, I got one on my phone. I divided 13 positive cases by 19,500 people. And I know we have a little more in the county. You know what that is? By percent? 0.67% of our population right now have COVID-19. I have a problem with the CDC. I brought a video tonight. I'm probably not going to play it. It's 3 minutes long. But I think most of you will know of the person named Wolf Blitzer. He's a CNN analyst guy that sits and has a show every night. He had on the director of the CDC on a show. Her name is Dr. Rochelle Walensky. These are her quotes. If you want to go to that video, it's out there. Vaccinated, this is her quotes, vaccinated and not non-vaccinated have the same capacity to carry, shed, and transmit the virus. So it doesn't matter if you're vaxxed or unvaxxed, you can give people the virus. Second quote, the shot does not prevent COVID-19 infection, or does it stop the vaccinated person from transmitting the infection. That's the head of CDC's quotes on national television. The latest study out of Massachusetts, where 75% of the people in the state are vaccinated. How many people were in during the study, how many were in the hospitals? 75% of those with COVID, were vaccinated. Now, I did a short listing of all the things that came to us as board members. So I'll make a short summary. Lake County, this is what we're supposed to do, promote the vaccine. As a school district, masks for all people indoors, and if you're unvaccinated, you must be 3 feet away from anyone else. State superintendent, mask indoors, promote the vaccine. Wisconsin Department of Health Services, many times promote the vaccine. Schools should strive for vaccinations of all staff and students. Offer testing once per week to those who are non-vaccinated. So obviously, the goal is to make known within the school district who is vaxxed and who is not. DPI, testing program for staff and students of the unvaccinated. Promote vaccination, masks for everyone over 2 years old. And Dr. McKenna, masks for all students, masks for unvaccinated staff, and test unvaccinated staff weekly. Now, I've been saying for months, and the gentleman in the blue said the same thing. We as parents have the rights within this country to decide what is best for our own health decisions and those of our children. It is not the school district's position to go forward with vaccinations and masks.
Dr. Sprague, could you speak if there's any district thoughts or plans on sponsoring a vaccine clinic?
Yes, in fact, it was on my list tonight. We have facility rentals, of course, but with public health, we had planned to partner and offer a vaccination clinic at our open house at the high school for the whole public. It would not be exclusive to just high school students or staff. And that would be on August 25th.
Is that because of lack of access and to increase access, or something different?
I think to increase access and, like for example, we've put out on our Facebook page where vaccinations are available without having it, an endorsement like we want every student, etc. But with open access to our facilities, we've partnered with public health before, like when they had the vaccination clinics for staff. So I had originally made the assumption it would be okay again, but then wanted to mention it to the board tonight.
Can I ask if you do that, is parental consent required?
Of course, yep. Good question. The question was, would you have to have parental consent for a minor, and that is yes.
Don't you think that by you hosting it, it gives the implication that you're wanting everybody to get vaccinated?
I actually don't, because we offer a lot of things in our schools that families have the option to take us up on or not.
This is a whole different level. Like, it's available at Walgreens. You can go get it at Walgreens. You don't need to get it at the school. I don't think this is the position the school should be taking it off.
And again, we just had planned to offer it because of the convenience if a family chooses. The convenience, if they come to open house, it would be available.
Dr. Sprague, is there, based on public comment, a lot of feedback regarding concerns with masking and quarantine and student achievement. Is there any discussions regarding quarantine for the upcoming school year?
We follow the quarantine protocol that's established by the CDC and our local health department, and I know that we shared with the board last time that the protocol had relaxed in terms of going from 10 to 7 days, but to my knowledge, the last time I checked, that protocol remains the same. And it isn't us who determine whether a vaccinated student would have to quarantine or not. That is beyond us. We're just following their guidelines.
But do you have to? Do you have to follow their guidelines, or are you just choosing?
There's schools that are not.
Because there are schools that are not.
The question is, do we have to follow their guidelines? I would defer to the board, because when COVID first started, as a board, we agreed to follow CDC and local health department guidelines on quarantine.
So to clarify, that would mean that if an unvaccinated student was in close contact, the unvaccinated student would then be in a quarantine. Is there a differentiator between students in close contact that have received the COVID shot and students in close contact that have not received the COVID shot?
Go ahead, Dara.
Yes, they're up. You want me to use them?
Yes.
According to the CDC, DHS, American Academy of Pediatrics, and DPI, if someone is unvaccinated and they are in close contact, we have now elected, if they do not show symptoms, that they are able to, they need to quarantine on day 6 or 7, within 48 hours of returning to school, they need to have a negative PCR test. And if it's negative, they can come back on day 8. If they choose not to test, they are quarantined for a total of 10 days. And that's if they're asymptomatic. If they have symptoms, then they have to quarantine for a full 14, okay? Unless they test. If they test and they're negative, they can return to, well, no, they can't. They're full 14 because they're close contact, okay? If they're vaccinated, according to the information that we received, vaccinated people, if they do not show symptoms, can return to school, can continue to be in school, but they have to mask for 14 days. If they choose not to mask, then they have to quarantine, if they choose not to mask.
Nurse Jansen, do you feel personally that makes sense?
I do. Knowing, it does make sense because of vaccinations. If the vaccinations have proven what they said is correct, you can still get the virus, but what vaccinations do, it prevents serious illness and it prevents death, which our data shows has been really good.
Correct, but vaccinated individuals can also shed pathogens.
They can, but-
Knowledge to be asymptomatic and carry the
Exactly.
virus itself. So
You're right.
I'm just really confused where the discrimination lies between vaccinated and unvaccinated when either or could both be walking around sick.
Again, if they are unvaccinated, they will be home quarantined. If they're vaccinated, they must wear a mask.
And so what happens then for the unvaccinated children, which we all know are anyone ages 12 and under for sure, and families like myself who don't agree with them. So you're saying that any child under the age of 10, or 12, excuse me, then is forced into a 7 to 10 day quarantine if they choose not to test for whatever reason. They're forced into a 7 to 10 day quarantine. What are these parents supposed to do?
I know. I get it.
So you don't agree?
No, I agree with, I follow the DHS and
If you
CDC.
feel that it makes no sense, then why are you standing up here acting like you advocate for
No, I didn't say it.
I can actually answer the question about what they would do. As you know from last year, we have a learning management system now called Canvas. Our teachers will be ready so that daily lessons and learning targets that will serve as like their lesson plan book, for example. And since we have devices for every child, if someone has to quarantine, and if not, maybe the family is taking a trip, they will have access. It won't be the same because I personally agree with in-person learning, but some kids did really well with remote learning. So we have the offer there because we don't want kids to fall behind. And we learned a lot last year and we'll be ready to help them should they have to quarantine and or are unable to be in school.
And I will say,
Jill, did that answer your question about the quarantine?
Yes, and my follow-up would be, the role of the board members is to increase student achievement. And Dr. Sprague, I'm curious if you could provide the board with feedback on the recommendations regarding masking and quarantine and how you see that as it relates to student achievement, inclusiveness, and equitable outcomes.
That's a big question. I would just say that our primary objective is always to keep our students and secondarily staff as safe as possible. Once safety is in place, then academic achievement and emotional wellness would be second. So we did the best we could under our circumstances last year. I personally feel really proud that we never had to close a school. I feel very proud of that, and I do believe professionally and personally that it's because of the mitigation strategies we put in place. So to answer your question, Mrs. Maddock-Nelson, I'm as excited as anyone to get back at student achievement being our primary focus. I can't really do that though until I know that the threat of COVID and our student safety is neutralized, and I don't feel that way yet. I do feel it's still a threat.
Do you think that's ever going to be?
Thank you. I appreciate your feedback, thank you. I think one thing that we haven't discussed would be the effect of quarantine for co-curriculars, and we know by data showing that co-curriculars increase academic achievement, and by quarantining we are removing access to those such things which are natural motivators. So I think that's something that we haven't really focused on or talked about. And I just wanted to share some feedback because another significant component that we haven't talked about is the impacts on learning and mental health. So feedback I've heard from providers and from teachers would be that students are behind in areas such as speech and language development. A quote from a teacher is, "It is impossible for me to teach phonics while wearing a mask." And I recently was provided feedback from a local therapist within Limelight County that I felt was important to share, and I wanted to utilize this opportunity to share that. So the therapist has shared that they have experienced a big increase with clients that are experiencing anxiety and depression, as well as increased referrals for therapy. Increased anxiety and depression is due to the loss of control, and depression, let me start over. Increased anxiety is due to a loss of control, and depression because people are more isolated and feeling hopeless that this will never end, vaccine or not. Anxiety and depression has increased due to not being able to see friends, which is creating more anxiety and depression, including low self-esteem, which makes it difficult to focus, which impacts schoolwork, which then creates anxiety of failing classes, and the cycle continues. So I do think our mental health is a really important component to physical health as it relates to COVID, and I think that should be an important part of our decision-making as well.
Tom Schofield, just hypothetically speaking, if you polled the other athletic directors, or does the WIA even allow it, would they allow sports to continue if we said, oh, any good players don't have to quarantine?
Well, right now, the guidelines are that small with quarantine if they are not vaccinated, they will have to quarantine for 10 days, and if they are vaccinated, then the WIA guidelines on the website is all every school district, that they would be able to not quarantine and have to check symptoms. So basically everything you guys are talking about right now, WIA, they're saying that they are unvaccinated, and they will have to still quarantine, and if they're vaccinated, then they would not have to do this
What has to happen?
That's what they're.
So I'd say we can't change that, at least, because I've always wondered, well, what if we just let kids drink when they're 18? Let's not suspend them from the athletic code, but WIA won't let us play. You know, it's not that much difference in that sense. But I don't know, Joe, the other part about masks, and I'm not advocating for masks here, but statistically, you'd have to have like a masked group for half the high school and an unmasked group for the other half, and then see which one performed better. You know, it's not like we're really performing controlled randomized studies to see the effect on, academics. In that sense, it'd be really hard to piece out.
Unless we look at data of scores pre-COVID and post. I mean, I'm not.
Right.
Say it again.
Just feedback to JD's comment of not being able to identify legs in learning with masking or non-masking. So my feedback was just unless we look at testing scores and data leading up to COVID and now post-COVID. Mr. Schofield, who reports close contacts to the WIA? Yeah, so I had trouble hearing you, I'm sorry. So I think I heard if a student that hasn't received the shot was in close contact, then they have to quarantine, correct? So then who reports to WIAA, the close contacts, for that to be enforced?
It's supposed to just be by school district. I mean, so when we have in the past, they obviously pass, we had to quarantine kids from the school. They're quarantined from the school, they're not allowed to be next to the neighbors. And so we obviously just had no, not had no quarantine. Now, the rule is now that you don't submit data, that's what you're asking, like how many, like, I have, they have to be quarantined, I don't have to submit it to the WIA, the school district submits it, it's just on the school district administration to follow those guidelines and make sure that they are doing properly.
Thank you.
I want to add a little bit of discussion here whenever we go back, just to think about the masks for a moment. I hope we don't ever go back to wearing the masks, because if we do, how come half of this room is not wearing masks now, if you believe that much in masks? I commend Dr. D, because I've watched him throughout this whole situation, and he's always got a mask on, wherever I've seen him. But I've seen a lot of our administration, I've seen a lot of our staff out in restaurants, even when they were supposed to be wearing masks, not. So what's the difference? Where do we draw the line?
And you don't see the administration here recommending masks. That was just the advice they got from everybody else. They were leaving it up to the board.
I understand, but I'm trying to prove a point that we don't need to go back to the mask issue. It's done, it's over with. So the next thing that I'd like to ask about is the parents. When these kids are quarantined at home, an 8-year-old kid by themselves at home, it's great that they have a device that they can learn at home, but what about mom and dad that's working on the job that cannot get off of work because they don't have time off from work? So that 8-year-old child's at home alone all day long because mom and dad can't get off work because employers do not have that flexibility anymore to pay people when they're off because they have a COVID, a child that could be completely free of everything, but yet he's sitting at home or she's sitting at home. So I think really what we need to do is let the parents get back to being the parents, mom and dad being mom and dad, and taking care of the kids, and the school being the school and educate the kids. That's really what I think we should be getting back to. Get back into the student achievement. I'm sure that our student achievement has plummeted over the last 2 years, but we don't hear anything about that because DPI wants to keep all of that hidden from the public. You know, what we have here, we have Dr. Faith Fauci on one side telling all kinds of truths, right? And there's all kinds of scientists on the other side that are telling their truths, right? Don't we have that? Science is fluid. Science changes. I wasn't that great in science, but I did realize that science does change. One time, somebody said the Earth was a cube. Now science changed, we know that it's not a cube. So this COVID is, as I think I heard somebody say, it's never going to go away. This is something we're going to live with, just like we live with the flu, except for, wait a minute, it's gone away, mysteriously. But, so we have scientists on one side of the coin that are saying the truths about COVID-19. We have scientists and doctors on the other side that are saying truths because they found truths also. So the great thing about America is we're in the middle. So we can either choose if we want to take the one side, we can. If we want to take the other side, we can. But what we're trying to do as a board is take that choice away from mom and dad for their students. And that's not right. I believe as a board, I will stand and say that I made a mistake by giving you the authority on all of the COVID. I wish I would have never agreed to that. And to this community, I'm sorry. Because this board needs to rise up and take that authority back, because we are the ones that sit around this table and answer to every taxpayer of the Unified School District of Annabelle, not DPI. We answer to the taxpayer, because if the taxpayers don't want to sit in here, they'll let us know come April. So it's a choice. And the great thing about America is we can choose one side or the other. But what some people in our government are wanting to do is fundamentally change us into a socialist form of government to where the government tells us what we need to do, where we need to go, how we need to do it. I believe, I'm of the firm opinion, let mom and dad be mom and dad and take care of their kids the best way that they know how. And I've been getting a lot of emails from teachers, from staff, and administrators saying they don't want to have this quarantine because it dies in academic achievement. And they don't want the mask because it dies. There was a teacher that called me last year and said, I saw a student at Walmart. And that student looked at me and said, hello. Well, the next day, the student goes up to the teacher and says, how come you didn't say hi to me at Walmart last night? This teacher, this was in May, that ran into this student in May. After the whole entire school year, did not even know what that student looked like without a mask on. So we're losing the identity of our kids. We need to let the parents be the parents, and I'm still back to what I said in May, and I'm going to stick to what I say in May. It's my choice, it's my body, but that only applies for something else.
Pastor Pyatt, I just remind you that anytime you want something put on the agenda, just go ahead and let us know. You haven't asked for anything else to be put on the agenda other than masking. So, we have given Julie the authority to go ahead with stuff. And if you want something else put on the agenda, let us know.
I would like for the COVID to be put on the agenda, that the board makes the decisions for the COVID going forward. Put that on the agenda for the end of this month so we can discuss that. It's my request.
You want everything dealing with COVID to have a motion?
Absolutely. Let the public know what's going on with COVID, with what the decisions that are being made in our school.
Yeah, transparency, fine.
We say transparency, but we really don't have it. I'm sorry, but we don't.
I think I'm fine with putting COVID decisions, but there are granular decisions made every day, thousands of them, and it is an impossibility to run those by the board. You hired me to do a job. You're weighing in on COVID tonight, and if I'm hearing correctly, you'll weigh in on possibly keeping our current mask recommendation or changing it. But I have to respectfully disagree. We cannot run everything by the board. We couldn't be in session then, Danny.
It'd be easier if you would be more specific, Danny. If you said,
Can you hear me? If you would say, be more specific, I want to vote on the quarantine. So if we vote to abolish it and everybody gets sick and the schools all shut down, then they can choose to blame us. People handled it last year because they were happy to be back in school. But if we do that and everybody gets sick,
Really?
I'm just asking you hypothetically, we do that, no quarantine requirements, what are you going to come back and say?
So there could be some, that's a good example, if the board wants to address whether or not we follow the CDC quarantine protocol, that would be a big ticket item that could be on the agenda, in my opinion.
I would like to see that on the agenda.
Can I ask who hired you?
The board.
The board. And how do we fire you?
Only the board. She said, how do you fire the
Maybe
superintendent?
put that on the agenda.
We just renewed her contract.
Dr. Sprague and the health department, we did hear a lot of concern about students getting the shot or not getting the shot. And I'm wondering, a lot of feedback that I've received from people in the community, parents, business owners, etc., is concerned because the shot does not, when the COVID vaccine is advertised, there's no links, there's no information about adverse effects or complications, and could that be included in the promotions for the shots to help provide parents with an informed decision?
We have provided that through our website and through Facebook. We also provide all of that at our COVID vaccination clinics as well. with the links to VAERS, with the links to VSafe, which is another monitoring app that we encourage everybody to use to report any potential side effects that they would be having. VAERS is something that's a national, it's a required reporting for all healthcare systems, and anybody who thinks or is aware of any potential side effect from any type of vaccine. So there is monitoring out there, and we have promoted that.
I apologize if I misspoke to say that you never have. I followed up when it was brought to my attention, and so I couldn't find links, one of which was when the district posted on our website. So I did look for links, so I apologize. I didn't mean that to be all encompassing.
Okay, here's another one, Danny and Jill. Do you want us to vote on whether they allow this vaccination clinic at the high school?
Yes.
Yes.
So do you have it before the next board meeting?
We meet on the 24th and open house is on the 25th, so I do worry about the turnaround time. There would not be time to advertise and/or it would just be really tight.
Is this reasonably related to the agenda item? Can we vote, or is it too vague?
Well, what you've done before during this section of the agenda is come to consensus. So unless everyone is in agreement, we wouldn't move forward. To have it, everyone would have to agree that we should have it or host it.
Okay.
Can I have the mic for a minute?
Did you understand what Julie?
Oh, I clearly understood.
I don't think we need to worry about advertising because there's nobody from the public that's going to show up just because there's a vaccine clinic there. So if we wait to vote on this on the Tuesday night of our board meeting, the people that are going to show up are already going to be there. And if the county department has a booth set up, they can receive their vaccination if the board so chooses to go to that. So as far as advertising the community, now you sound like you really wanted to get the community people to come out whenever, as it's already been mentioned, there's places all over Antigo that you can go get a vaccine. So I don't think advertising should be an issue. I'm not wrong.
So you're okay with them having the clinic because you don't think anybody will show up anyhow?
No, I'm not okay with that because that's the vote, that's the school pushing this. My vote is no. If I was voting today, it'd be no. If I voted next time, it would still be no. Because I don't think the school should be doing that. The school needs to be in education, not in health department.
Okay. So, Dave, Jill, do you feel essentially the same way that Danny does? That we shouldn't have the vaccination clinic?
Are you asking all of us or just the two of us?
I think you should first because
he's right.
I can ask Dr. Deep, but unless we have consensus on this, and I could stop right now, we don't have consensus to have it.
No, we don't have consensus.
Okay. Anything else?
I feel like, Andy, I just feel like it would maybe be helpful for you to explain what just happened for the people that are in the audience. I think it might help reduce some frustration.
So we can either vote on things or we can decide them by consensus. Consensus would mean that the board would agree to do something where they would not object to administration going forward with it, and we don't have consensus for having the vaccine clinic.
That's it.
Okay, I think that concludes COVID discussion.
Got any more, Danny and Jill?
I have a question. Are you moving on to new business?
We're moving on to new business.
Because further down the list is item E, the medical advisor discussion. Can that be bumped up at all? Because that's sort of relevant to the COVID stuff.
We would have had to bump that up at the beginning of the meeting. I don't think the next items are going to take very long, so we'll just leave it where it is. And we'll move on to new business. Item A, board member meeting legislative reports. Does anybody have anything they want to report? And I'll just say that we had the community engagement meeting, and there was a couple of board members requested that we do some follow-up with that, and Mary Kay has sent out a request to see if September 21st is okay with everybody, and she hasn't received anybody who said it wasn't. Correct? Okay, so if that's good with everybody, we're going to do it on that night. And we'll go on to item B, 2020-2021 budget audit update.
Amy, I provided the board with a memo, and there were two items that rose to discussions with the auditors. And the first one had to do with our OPEB liability. And in the past, we worked with an actuarial firm to do a pay-as-you-go. And as I noted, we should have been using, as this is the final payment, we should have been using the net present value. So there's going to be an accounting adjustment there of $122,000. And then the second item had to do with a liability account that should automatically get cleared in the accounting system when we run payroll. And it's essentially what we had to end up doing was we're going to come up with, and this is getting very, very granular that the board doesn't need to know, but we're coming up with a different balance sheet liability account number to correct this problem in the future. And essentially what we had to do is transfer funds from our general checking account, operational checking account, into the HRA health account at Covantage. So it's just taking an asset in one account and transferring it to another with no operational impact on anything else. Questions from the board?
Okay, then we will go on to item C, summer school report.
Can you hear me? All right. So it's a pleasure to talk about summer school. I know each of you have a copy of the summary that I prepared. Just some things to kind of talk about as far as highlights for this summer session. We were able to build some partnerships with NTC and offer a session for our middle school students called Magic School Bus. And that is kind of an area that we're trying to build, is that programming for middle school and high school. We're comfortable with what we have at the elementary, but we know we can enhance those programs even more. And just had a conversation with Cindy Hodak the other day where we're thinking of maybe moving that LID camp, which just concluded about a week ago or a few days ago, and maybe moving that closer into the June, July session. And what we're really trying to build programming for middle school, high school. The Farm to Fork was a nice targeted program that was successful for high school students. And I think our work now with Matt Morak as the high school liaison for summer school is going to be a benefit. And I think if we look at some targeted programming, something similar to that Farm to Fork that kind of focused on our egg science kids, could we replicate something like that in CTE, or maybe some other core areas. But things to work on, we could have done a better job promoting summer school in the spring, even though parents are familiar with the online registration through Park and Rec, and just building more partnerships. We've had some informal talks with Boys and Girls Club, how we could potentially work together. But I think not having summer school, it was the right decision last summer not to have it, but I think parents found other options, and we have some competition in the community, and we need to make that instructional programming in the summer something that people believe is important and beneficial. And we have a great staff, as I mentioned in the summary, willing to step up and make it, the best experience we can for our students. So, be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim.
And we'll go on to item D, Juul and electronic cigarette litigation.
If you have followed the news, you know that districts around the state are signing on to this law group's lawsuit representing high schools and districts for free in a Juul litigation lawsuit. So we have scheduled later this month a representative to appear virtually and just tell the board briefly a synopsis of what it entails. And we've uploaded the agreement here so that you have time to read that and then make an informed decision as a board later this month. I know some districts in the Fox Valley have signed on. My meeting with CISA 9 districts is tomorrow, and unfortunately we have one scheduled here, so I can't attend. But I will update the board on which schools in our area are joining when I have that information.
Okay, any questions on that?
Well, I was not aware of the school districts signing on. I thought this was independent kids who could, the parents who could sign on.
Entire districts are being represented.
Okay, we'll go on to item E, medical advisor discussion. And so last year, yearly we appoint a medical advisor. And Dr. McKenna has been the medical advisor for quite a few years, except when he was in New Zealand. And I have talked with him, and he's willing to be medical advisor again next year. So we will have to appoint somebody at the August meeting. Any questions or comments?
Andy, could you share, this has been a question that's been asked multiple times, and so I'm asking on behalf of a lot of feedback. Can you share some information regarding how we determine who's appointed as the medical advisor and kind of what the district looks for? Like if they're applicants or if it's posted, kind of how that works?
How do we get the different one? How did they decide who that was going to be? Did they just ask for volunteers, Dr. Deep, when Patrick was gone? Yes. Somebody just, they're not getting paid, it's just somebody doing that out of goodness of their heart.
It's not, and I think because you have a situation where you're involved with children, you probably need to have a physician who is well versed with the issues, both with your public health as well as with the pediatrics. It takes a lot of commitment. I know sometimes people may not like what you've heard from him, but also you need to appreciate that he volunteers his time. You could, if somebody feels strongly and you want to go approach another family physician in the community and ask them if they are interested in serving in this role and what it entails, so be it. But I would suggest that we discuss with one of the family physicians in the community if someone is willing to step up and wants to take a chance at serving in that role.
You can't imagine, Joe, why a doctor might not want to come and get scolded by 50 parents.
But he's in an unenviable position, what do you do? As a physician, yes, I will speak the science, I will speak what I've been taught and what my training and my experience dictates. I'm not going to just bend the rules or say something just to please you. My take with my patients has always been that you come to me for my best professional opinion. And I will call you out if you're not doing the right things. I'm not there to just pat you on the back and say that that's okay if you don't want to follow these, if you don't want to take care of your health, that's okay, just pay your bill on the way out. my conscience would not permit that. So I would support anybody who is willing to do their part in good faith.
Thank you, I appreciate that feedback, and I just want to make sure I'm really clear. When it's been asked to me, it's not necessarily in a negative capacity or a negative connotation, and I do respect and appreciate the time that Dr. McKenna does provide to us. So I just wanted to make sure that wasn't, I was not insinuating a negative connotation to that question being asked. But he is, an integral part of COVID updates, which has been very important to parents. So that is more the context in which that question has been asked to me.
Andy, just a question here, because I'm still learning a lot, even though I've been on here for a while. Have we ever put this position on notice in the paper, if somebody's interested? Because I know my family physician doesn't want to do it. Do you? But there could, I put you on the spot all the time. If there's somebody out there that we don't know that could possibly want to, I mean, again, thank Dr. McKenna for all that he's done, and then the year that he was gone out of the country, Dr. Snyder took over for that time. Thank him for his service of what he did. But do we ever put notice out?
My recollection of it would be that we do not, that we just ask somebody to do it. And I don't, are people at the hospital fighting for this job? No. And so I think we've asked, but it doesn't mean we can't put a notice out. We can put a notice in the paper, and we really ought to appoint this position at the August meeting. So Julie and I'll discuss what a deadline would be for people to apply, and then if we have several, we would set up a time at the next meeting to interview them.
And in the notification, we put the qualifications, what they have to have, correct? And do they have to be a resident of the Unified School District of Annabelle? Is that qualification of this?
That might be any legal qualification. You might not be able to specifically.
That's what I'm saying. There could be somebody who also might be interested. I don't know. There could be somebody right.
There might be, but
You might be dreaming of it.
Can it be a chiropractor? Can it be, what type of doctor, medical advisor does this have to have? What kind of qualifications are required to be the medical advisor? I guess that's what I'm kind of unsure of.
Can it be? So am I at this time, and so we'll look into that and we'll include that in the ad.
Okay, thank you.
And I think too, with last year being the way it was, Dr. McKenna did make it to almost every meeting and shared his information, but we never saw Dr. Snyder. I don't remember it was a different situation that Dr. McKenna maybe, was here. And I think back, all the years I was teaching, I don't know if there was a medical director. We never saw a medical, there wasn't a need. We were trained in the buildings by the school nurse came, and I was one of the first providers, the EpiPen and all the other things, and when to call 911, when not to call 911, and so I don't remember there ever being a situation where, like last year, like this past year, and I can't, if you want to, can you hang a little sign over at the clinic and say, does anybody want to, be the medical advisor? Can it be a physician's assistant? Is that what they call the, or does it need to be, and I would think.
I would much rather prefer a physician who is dealing with pediatrics with this age group.
Sure.
Secondly, if you look at our documents, it does say that the primary contact is our school nurse.
Right.
Okay, so I would probably look at this as a person who would be a contact, a guide, an advisor to Darlene or whoever the school nurse is, and just gives you that advice when needed. And again, you are absolutely right, we have not seen anybody else in the past because we did not need them to come in and update us every month on a regular basis. This was a unique situation the last year and a half. So maybe going forward, maybe when this thing is put to rest, you probably won't see the medical director until maybe once a year or twice a year that they show up for some issue that comes up. Or in the past when we had looked at the medical advisor, it was to ask what do we want, what supplies do you need, and we had some discussion about the EpiPens and medications and can the school nurse administer these. Those were the only discussions that we requested the medical advisor, the physician, to be physically present to answer the board questions. So that's the role that I'd envision for them. They don't have to be here every month and tell you what to do every single day of the school days. I'm thinking this was a different situation and it'll probably go back to our old normal.
I just have one more comment, because I agree with what you're saying, Dr. D, but let's look at what our policy says about what the duties and the qualifications are, and let's make that policy read what we want it to read, because if it doesn't currently say what you just said about a pediatric physician, then it could be opened up to anybody, according to our policy, correct? And then in the duties to defend Dr. Snyder, I don't know who Dr. Snyder is, but there's only 4 things listed here for the duties and responsibilities. So, and one of those was, none of those says you have to be at the meeting. And I appreciate Dr. McKenna being here in all the meetings, but Dr. Snyder, maybe he didn't know, and if it's not put down in front of somebody, you don't know that they need to be there. So, let's keep that in mind. While we're reconstructing this, let's reconstruct it the way that we as a board want to see this going forward from now. That makes sense?
Danny, are you expecting anyone to actually apply?
Who knows, JD? We don't know.
Yeah.
There might be somebody sitting out there.
I'm just curious.
I think we'll place the ad. If we get multiple applicants, we will interview.
Right at the meeting, right at the August 30th meeting?
Yes.
Hey Andy, I had actually put on the paper that I wanted to speak on this. We didn't call for any public comment on medical advice.
Yeah. The public is welcome to comment on anything at the beginning of the meeting. There's no restrictions on what you could comment on, as long as it's done in a respectful manner.
Yes, but I also requested to comment on this. And so when you started this,
Well, however you used your 5 minutes is up to you.
so you're saying I only get 5 minutes per,
5 minutes.
So use that 5 minutes next month, or at the end of August.
oh, okay, well, that's good to know. Thanks for being clear for that.
Honestly, we never had anybody public comment, so to have someone want to public comment twice, good for you. Okay, usually no one ever comes to the meeting, so.
Well, I'll be glad if they're asking questions now.
Okay. I think that takes care of the medical advisor discussion, and we'll go on to the 2021-2022 Boys and Girls Club, the Northwoods agreement discussion.
It is our intention to ask you at the end of this month to approve our partnership and contract with the Boys and Girls Club. The stipulations and costs would remain the same. That's why we that's why we listed this past year's contract, so that you would know what we'll be asking for in 2 weeks. Any questions about that?
Okay, then we'll go on to item G, property offer discussion. This is Jake.
So we were approached by,
You shut it off.
was it on? We were approached by an individual that has a property that borders Schofield Stadium's property. It comes out to Elm Street, which is on the west side of the park. We do not have road access out there from the field, so it was kind of one of those things that we just wanted to stop and think about in the opportunity that it would interest us. We do have access out to Fifth Ave in 2 locations. We do have access to Delaglease in 1 location, and then obviously the school side. So, I mean, there's not necessarily an immediate need for it, but it could provide options going forward. And I would hate to just overlook that option as it may only come around once or twice a lifetime. Just wanted to know if there's any interest from the board for me to pursue that, or if that's something that we didn't feel was necessary.
How much do they want for the property?
Tim, did you confirm that?
They said they were going to consider, they were considering listing it with a realtor and possibly trying to ask something in the neighborhood of $40,000.
40? Do you think we need another?
Do you think we need another access point? You said there were 2 on Fifth Ave. Where's the
There's one straight
okay.
north of the.
Where there's that parking lot and then, okay. And we've got the one on Delaglease. We bought that property on Delaglease. So what would, Tom, what do you think? Do we need another access point? I mean, come on.
That I'm aware of? I don't know. What were you thinking, Mary? I guess if I had to comment, Jake and I, when we first looked at it, it's not something that is extremely advantageous for us to get at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not very often that we get people asking us to purchase property next to West Elementary. And rather than have the 2 of us decide that that wasn't something we were interested in, we thought we should bring it to you.
What do you think we do with it? Knock down the houses and have a driveway?
Okay, so wait, how many houses from the Elm Street entrance to west? Okay, then there's Davis's house and Mrs. Kubini's house. Is this the next house? It was hard to see. I couldn't get the picture to blow up anymore, but that's the, isn't that the concession stand thing? So there's still 2
It's
houses.
just to the north of the concession stand. Right on the
Okay,
edge.
but that really isn't close to West Elementary.
No, it's on Elm.
Right. But Tim said something about West Elementary and
It attaches to the whole property.
No, but
it attaches onto the property, but that's locked.
But when you, yeah, but what you're looking at is west is here.
Yeah.
This is here. So it's basically entrance onto the other side.
To the other side of what? I'm confused.
I believe West Elementary would be in that corner there, Mary.
Correct.
Okay, that's your Fifth Ave up there.
Yeah.
And here's this property here. This is basically where we usually walk from the restrooms and the concession stand when you walk around. This is pretty close to, isn't that closer to where we have the flag? It's probably just a little bit south of where the flag is.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. I think it's.
But I can't see how it would be advantageous to west. I did ask about the condition of the building as well, and it is not in, it would not be advantageous for us to use that building for anything. It would just be more the space. I personally don't feel we need the space, but I agree with the gentleman that it was right to bring it to the board, right, in case you were thinking of something we hadn't considered.
You know, one of the things that did help us, you know, just out of the blue by chance, when the district purchased the property that goes to
Delaglease?
Delaglease, when we had to do the 3-phase service upgrade for the electrical for West Elementary, it was much cheaper for us to bring it through that way than to bring it all the way around. So I mean,
there's reasons for.
There's potentials down the road. Is there
Yeah.
anything I can see right now? No.
But you
No,
also
there's-
use that entrance for the ambulance and
Correct,
fire
yeah.
service to be there when you have your games.
Yes, and that is very convenient.
Yeah.
So Jake, what is the one parking lot on Fifth Avenue is designated for handicap parking, correct?
Yes.
So is that full? This could be a potential handicap because it's just as close as the other one is on Fifth, correct?
Yeah, it could.
I mean, that's the potential for it to be at the present.
Yep.
With the existing home and the property, I'm just gonna shout because I don't have the mic by me. Well, I don't need to be there if you can hear me. With the residents on the property, is there an idea of what it would cost to maintain or something different? You know, if we don't have an immediate use right now, we sell the property and how do we have to maintain it? Just, is there any kind of ballpark on what that cost-wise would be?
To maintain it as is or make it, to raise the building and make it parking lot?
Probably option 2.
Okay. It's hard to say without actually getting people in there to look at it, if there's
Yeah.
asbestos or things like that, but I would certainly think that it would be in the ballpark of $30,000 at a minimum. And maybe yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Tim, I agree with your statement that this opportunity doesn't come around often, so I'm trying to get creative and comprehensive in thoughts with what to do with it or what to do with it in the meantime. So thank you.
Helpful. I wasn't saying you don't get it, but I guess I was wondering what the
Purpose is?
what it would be, and handicap parking lot, that would be, I mean, if we need more handicap parking, that's good. Somebody'd have to shovel or do whatever over there, but that would be you.
Yeah.
So, does anybody want this, to look into this a little further to get a firm price, and do you want it to come back at the meeting? Sure. The next meeting? Sure. Okay, so that's coming back.
Okay. Thank you.
And, let's see, we'll go on to item H, facility naming rights.
So when the, when we had, went over the fundraising for Schofield Stadium, there was, the Good Night Club discussed, well, how are we gonna get this money? Obviously, it was a lot of money. It was more money than what we actually, could even fundraise for. So during that, they went over a different sort of, they had fan donors, they had first down donors, extra point donors, safety donors, field goal donors, touchdown donors, and then they had a field naming right donor. The field naming right isn't to take away Schofield Stadium. There's other stadiums around that have so-and-so field at so-and-so stadium. So the thought was if we can get $50,000 towards our field renovation, then we would have that in writing basically on a sign and have it out there. So the field naming rights, Wagner Oil Company Inc. donated the $50,000 to get us to the point where we could do the field renovation. It would be in memory of Howard Wagner, and Howard Wagner was a big supporter of Antigo football. He would give me lots and lots of money and donations for t-shirts for all my youth camps that I ran. His son John played for Antigo football, and he asked back when they made the big donation that the field naming rights weren't put to the board yet because they go public, and they didn't want it known to the public until close to the season to where we could reveal that. The plan is to, on August 27th, our first home game versus Escanaba, have John and his family come down. We have a sign that I shared with Dr. Sprague today that she was going to share out that was just, it's still in the works. Chad Manicheski is working with Southside Design. We're getting put together. And on the top of it, it just says field naming rights, Wagner Oil Company, Inc., in memory of Howard Wagner. One big discussion we had was, well, how long will this field last? You know, it's a grass field, it's not a field turf field. We're still one of the only, like us and Moseley are the only school districts that still play only on grass. Everybody else plays on field turf, which is a lot more expensive, obviously. So we discussed with John, we would wait and try to hold off, and then we were going to, you know, hopefully ask and obviously be able to have this field donated with a sunset of what he thought was 15 years, having the sign up, and if there's any changes that need to happen or anything with the field changes prior to, just discuss with him, and then obviously, like if something needed to change, it could, he would understand that. But for us to be able to make this project happen, which was more a huge desperate need, we needed the $50,000. And it's still going to be, and there's gonna be signage when you walk in that's gonna say, welcome to Howard Wagner Field at Schofield Stadium. So it's gonna just incorporate both names, still at Schofield Stadium, incorporate Howard Wagner Field, and then in 15 years, if we need to do more work, the field naming rights would be gone, and then we could try to fundraise for another field. So we are asking for it to be approved, to be named Howard Wagner Field. But as you can see on the sign that's going to be when you walk up on our home stands, there's going to be a sign that has all the donors, like I said, and then on top it'll say Wagner Oil Company, Inc., and then in memory of Howard Wagner.
And we would ask for the vote in 2 weeks, which would still give us time then before the first game.
Correct.
If we were giving you 70 grand, 40 of which to buy a lot and 30 of it to turn into a parking lot, could you have bought the field turf?
No.
How much is that?
At least 500,000.
Oh. Okay, I'm happy you didn't ask. How much was the field roughly total? Forgot. 120?
No, that was the dirt work, just the part that Muscle Brothers did. With the sod and everything, it's gonna be
More than that.
pushing that 175.
Mr. Schofield, but nowhere are you putting it down, are you putting a sign or a plaque saying Howard Wagner Field? Because from what I understood you to say, what I'm seeing here is what the sign will say by the home court.
Yeah, just the sign that you see, that's the only thing that you're going to see as the naming right, and then when you walk in, there'll be a sign when you walk in, just a small little sign saying, welcome to Howard Wagner Field at Schofield. That'll be all.
Just wanted to make sure that it did say Howard Wagner Field, because this is just a commemorative plaque for everybody there.
Yeah, it will say, on the big sign, it'll say Wagner Oil Company, Inc., in memory of Howard Wagner. And when you walk in, there'll be signs that say, welcome to Howard Wagner Field at Schofield Stadium.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go on to item I, exit interview data report.
Okay, the board, I had shared that exit interview data was coming in from the spring. So I've uploaded 2 attachments for you. The first is the actual questions that our third-party exit interviewer asks. And Again, he's from the Wisconsin Rural Schools Association. His name is David Hamelman. And so you see the questions there, and then each year, what I do is compile the data at his instruction. So at the point that this was administered and prepared for the board, we had given out 18 surveys and 10 respondents. And he calls people, I should clarify that, he uses telephone. So 56% response rate. And then, as you can see, the primary question is number 1, asking about, is there a primary reason for retirement or resignation? I always think it's kind of interesting when you're asking about retirement, because the primary reason should be, you're done, right? So anyway, 6 out of 10, or 60%, did indicate a move to another area of the state, and one actually out of state, or the commute. And then you can see down below the number of instances of those other questions that were mentioned. And what I've done is I only included the negative number of instances for you. There were many positive things shared as well, but what I do then is if there is something that is pertinent to an administrator, I will anonymously share that or ask questions, and same with the positives. So I did reach out to a number of people, and myself included, reflected on some as well. So that is the summary. And as any come in, because, that could happen, that they'll call them back and we get late respondents, I can share that data with you as well.
Okay, any comments?
I'd be curious in the positive feedback too, Julie. I think building on strengths is really important.
Okay. Want me, I can go back, should I do that?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
Go back and you'll just send us a summary of that? Okay.
We can review.
Oh.
Yeah, good. And then we'll go on to possible action items, and item A is consideration to approve the girls' tennis overnight trip.
I move the board approve the overnight trip for the girls' tennis team to Bayport on August 16 and 17, 2021 for a 2-day tournament.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll go on to item B, report of employee resignations and retirements.
I move the board accept the resignation of Nancy Pachter, food service, and Hannah Malashinsky, special education instructional assistant at North Elementary.
Second. Sorry, I was
just waiting for somebody to do it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on those? And we'd just like to thank them for their service. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we will go on to the report of new hires.
I move the board approve the following new hires: Jamie Smith, high school math teacher; Matthew Hine, high school science teacher; Joel Strasburger, high school English; and Tabby Newman, middle school lunch assistant.
Second that.
Any questions or comments on these? And Mary Kay will do a roll call.
Bartle,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Maddox Nelson,
yes.
Newfeld,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. And with that, we'll confirm that the next meeting will be Tuesday, September 14th.
Wait, Angie, Angie, what is the policy number you just sent me?
It is, public comment section of the meeting.
What is it,
Under the bylaws, I think it's under authority public participation at board meetings.
will you give her a mic? She sent me the public policy comment, and it's
not what I thought it was. It just,
What does it say?
it says, I just would want to find it, I just, public comment shall be permitted before the board takes official action on any issue of substance. I just didn't think this was what the policy was. Attendees must register their intent to comment in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer. Each statement made by participant shall be limited to 5-minute duration. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic, unless all the others who wish on that topic have been heard. So, were you thinking that that implied that you could speak on 2 topics?
Yes, it does, and Andy should have given me another chance to speak on that, because I signed the form saying I was wanting to talk on COVID and the medical advisor position. So I'm sorry, Andy, you don't like what I have to say, but I'm not going away.
According to our policy, she should speak.
I guess we just didn't know that. I bet
And
each,
so maybe you should read the bylaws, JD, before you make your sarcastic comments.
I didn't know my bylaws as well as you. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic. It sure implies that you could speak.
Each
Okay.
statement,
Go ahead, Angie, we'll give you another 5 minutes if you want it now, or you can have it at the next meeting,
I'll take it at the next meeting.
okay?
Just sign in again, Angie.
Absolutely, I will.
Okay, so if somebody wants to talk twice, or talk about 2 different subjects,
Maybe you need to register twice.
should they sign their name once
I-
and then sign their name twice?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we
Might
should put
make
it
it
on
clear.
the top of the paper then, so people clearly know that. Okay, and that's just a suggestion, so that other people don't have issues with this, right?
Yep. Do you know that, Danny? I
Because
didn't
your
know that.
bylaws say
No, I
each
didn't.
statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes, which that makes sense. So no one's going to be rambling on forever. And no participant may speak more than once on the same topic, unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. Okay,
Okay, you're correct, Angie. I stand corrected.
thank you.
and if they all happen at the beginning of the meeting? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, now we'll move on to confirm the next meeting is Tuesday, September 14th, 2021, and we'll have a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.